Welcome back. You're watching Sunday Express. Tonight in studio I have Anthony KAMANDE from the OXFAM International, being a research and policy advisor. And we're talking about inequality generally, because Kenya appears to have an inequality crisis. And Anthony will expound further. But first of all, how severe is this inequality? First of all, welcome. You're very much welcome to studio.
Yeah, thank you so much.
How severe is this inequality, particularly in Kenya, as compared to other nations within this region or within the continent?
Yeah, thanks for that. So the inequality crisis that we are facing as a country is actually very severe. So we have about 125 Kenyans who are wealthier than 43 million of us, which is astonishing. That's an injustice. But at the same time, we see that poverty is increasing in Kenya. So over the past one decade, especially since 2015, 2014 term, so we have about that 7% of Kenyans falling more into poverty. We have a lot of Kenyans who are going to bed hungry, with hunger crisis having increased by about 71% again since 2015. And we must, discuss this issue. What's the problem? Why a few Kenyans are becoming richer and richer, while the vast majority of us are actually becoming poorer? So we're having to sleep hungry. It's very simple, is that the economic growth in this country is actually going to the
Which
top.
is what I actually want us to get into, because the figures from government are rosy. And in a sense, you would say from 2015, as you're pointing out, the economy has grown in itself. Then how do you explain the paradox of having more people becoming poorer when the economy is becoming bigger or growing exponentially?
That's a good question again, because we keep on hearing how our GDP is growing, which is true. If you look over the past 10 years, so the economy has been growing at about 5% on average, so by 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But Kenyans are becoming poorer, and this is because of the policies that we have set as a country. Look at our tax system. Our tax system is disproportionately affecting the low-paid workers, especially in the formal sector, as well as, poor Kenyans, because they have to spend, they have to buy food, and if whatever those goods and services that we are buying are being taxed, the burden, of course, shifts to those people who have less money. But if you look at the top there, for example, so you work here at KBC, and if the national broadcaster is paying you, say, 50,000 Kenya shillings per month, and I have my own company, and I happen to get 1 billion Kenya shillings, do you know that you are going to pay more in taxes as a share of your income compared to me? So you're being punished as a worker for having to wake up very early in the morning, going to work, working from 9 to 5. But there are very few Kenyans, they have been benefiting from the system that we have sent as a country. And there's nothing wrong with them, but the system that we do have.
Let's dive deeper here, because it's a very interesting theory that I am likely to pay more in terms of taxation, the person earning less compared to multi-billionaires or multi-millionaires. And of course, you can rope in the whole question of how we have 125 being more wealthier than the 45 million of us. But the big question is, you reference the system. Do you know, system is an amorphous thing. What is the system? Specifically, what kind of policy are you pointing to that this is responsible for what we are into? Yeah,
by the system I mean in our government, the policies that our government as well as our parliament have been setting for the past couple of decades. It's a system that is meant to, for the wealth to flow from those who do not have to the top there. As I did mention about the tax system, which is unfairly taxing workers as well as poor Kenyans. Then we have issues to do with public services. You are reading news each day, and we hear the crisis that Kenyans are facing as far as health, as well as education are concerned. You'll be surprised that I started my primary education in the year 2003 when Mwai Kibaki became president. And then we were getting a capitation of about 1420, so that's 1,420 Kenya shillings, I think per year or per term. And surprisingly, that is the same amount of capitation that government has been sending to our primary school, which is actually equivalent to like 250 shillings back then. So it has fallen by more than 8%. Then, of course, we have the crisis in the healthcare system, which, of course, is impacting a majority of Kenyans, because we have to remember how unequal this system is. So the people who set policies in this country, they do not use public institutions. They don't go to public healthcare or public schools. They go into this expensive hospital as well as expensive schools. But the vast majority of us who do not have an option, you have to go to these public institutions to get the service that we need. But those services are not there because of underfunding, which is severe underfunding that we do have in our public institutions. That's true. Then thirdly, we have issues to do with our job market. 1 in 10 Kenyans currently, they are in the informal sector, which means that the pay is quite low. You can be fired at any time for any reason or for no reason at where. So the economy, yes, is growing, but it has not been able to generate quality jobs. So we keep on hearing each day, especially from our officials, that we have created like 8,000 or 800,000 jobs in a certain year, in a given year. But we never ask ourselves, where are these jobs? They are mostly in the informal sector, where the pay is like 10K, 8K, which means that Kenyans will live in this perpetual poverty because that 10K cannot be able to afford you, a good meal. Then you have to pay for kids, for your kids to go to school. You have issues to do with healthcare. And combined, all those three things, that is taxes, regressive taxes, and the funding of our public institution, in particular healthcare, as well as education, as well as the informality in our job market, create this sort of economic gap that we are seeing. That yes, there's growth, but growth is at the top.
There's quite a significant economic gap, but I want you to talk about wealth distribution. Particularly, this 12 that own more than the 45 are still within the country. It's not like they're outside the borders of this nation. They're within and owning the same money. What does it say about wealth distribution in this country?
It says a lot. It says that back to the system, that the system that we have created is not distributing wealth. It's wealth is going to the top, those 125 Kenyans who have more wealth than 77% of Kenyans. And again, the big question is why. I have to keep on repeating this. It's about the system that we have created. These same individuals, the other one who set policies, there's no way as assuming that one of them, I'm quite far away from that, there's no way that I'm going to set a progressive tax system that's going to tax me more. There's no way that I'm going to come up with a system that is, for example, going to tax me about 30 or that 5% of my income. I have to protect my income. And these people are in control of our government. They might not be there as individuals, but of course they have a lot of influence. And we can do better as a country. Other countries have come up with clear policies to reduce this economic gap. So if you look at Scandinavian country, like of Denmark, Sweden, they have actually a very low inequality. They have good life expectancy. They have good education. The tax system is also, quite progressive, and we need to do exactly that because other countries are doing it. Why can't we? And in our report, we have clear recommendations on how this one can be done. It's not rocket science. It's very simple.
We'll get to what needs to be done. But at some point you mentioned about underfunding, and particularly in the education and health sectors, probably some of the most important sectors when it comes to a wholesome citizen. But I want you to talk to the subject of underfunding and how it worsens or fuels inequality.
That's a good question. Again, the poor, the low-paid workers, they depend wholly on publicly funded social services. So whether it's education or whether it's healthcare. And when the government is not, spending sufficiently on these services, we are hitting them, or they are being hit the most. For example, if you look at our healthcare, we have been spending about 6% of our budget over the past couple of so many years. It has not changed. It's around 6% there, which means that we have like 94% of the remaining budget that we don't know, where it's going. What this means is that you have people who are meeting untimely death. You have orphans who should not be there in the first place. You have people who are facing like permanent illnesses because we have not been able to spend well on healthcare. When you come to education, again, this is clear. It was also in one of the newspapers this week. We have about more than 1 million kids who are out of school because of issues to do with underfunding. And then again, there's this gap between kids who come from rich backgrounds compared to those who come from poorer ones. For example, if you have a kid, on average, a kid from a poor family, they get 5 years further of schooling compared to a kid from rich family. So that's a huge gap. And then you can imagine what this will do in their lifetime. So you get 5 years of schooling. It's, even if you get 5 or 6 years, the education is of low quality, which means that there's this gap between this kid who comes from rich family and then this other kid who comes from poor family. Then, of course, they go into the job market. And, of course, we know that the job market in this country is also dependent on family background. Yeah.
Quite interesting. Let's talk about the structural reforms needed as part of your solutions in terms of cushioning, most importantly, these vulnerable groups. What are the structural reforms that are needed?
One is that we need money.
Okay.
We need money as a country. And the government is saying that our taxes that we are collecting are not enough, which is true. But there's money in this country if the government is willing to tax the wealthiest people so that they can pay taxes as the rest of Kenyans are doing. So you'll be surprised that about 11,000 Kenyans who are like multi-dollar millionaires, if we were to tax them by at most 5%, we can collect enough money to fund the universal healthcare for more than 450 billion Kenya shillings, just from about 11,000 individuals. So we do have money. If, for example, we can come up with a progressive tax system that ensures that those who have more capacity to pay are paying their fair share of taxes. It's very simple. For example, so capital gain tax in this country is at about 15%. So the billionaires of this country are paying at most 15% of their income, but workers are having to pay up to that 5%. Ordinary Kenyans, we have, buying goods, we have like excise taxes, we have like VAT taxes, they are paying more compared to what they're getting. So if we were to get more money, we need to increase some of these progressive taxes because we cannot overburden Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans, with more taxes.
Let me ask you a question before you get to the other solution. And it goes back to the first question that I asked you to tell us about, to describe the situation in Kenya and other countries in the region. Your proposal obviously is to hit the multi-billionaires, not to hit them really, it's just an increase of taxation. But you realize when you have neighbors, for example, who do not have such tax policies, you end up bleeding businesses from the Republic to other neighboring nations who are willing to welcome them with both hands. How do you ensure that this balances, to ensure that you remain with business and yet cushioning your poor?
Yes, that's a good question because that's what we keep on hearing when we start talking about taxing the wealthiest, that you are going to kill business. That's not true. Studies have shown that investors, they're actually not interested with how much taxes that they're going to pay, but how much they're going to get from these investments. So that notion that this where the people are going to, to other countries is not there. There's no way that we are going to be like the Singapore. The president has been saying that he wants this country to become first class country. There's no way that we are going to, match the likes of Singapore if our tax, revenue keeps on going down, and we have the capacity to tax the people who have the most capacity to do so. So, yeah, that's not true that anyone is going to, get out of this country because we are taxing them, 5%. What's 5% to a billionaire? That's too little.
Okay, continue with the solutions, the structural reforms.
So one is taxation, and then, of course, the other one is funding our public services. We need to ensure that money is actually going to where it's needed the most. We need to increase capitation. It's not cries from Kenyans that kids are being sent out of school to go and collect school fees. We have capitation which is going down, so we need to increase the capitation that's going to our schools. And especially now that we have this new curriculum, report shows that we also need more teachers. About 176,000 more teachers are needed in our public institutions. Then we also have something to do with healthcare. We now have a new healthcare system, but if you look at it keenly, it's again overburdening the same person who is being overtaxed, as well as excluding the vast majority of Kenyans. We can learn from other countries like Germany. It took Germany more than 100 years to reach universal healthcare with this sort of health insurance premium that we are currently having in Kenya. Then you can imagine that in Kenya we have like almost 90% of workers are in the informal sector. When are we going to reach universal healthcare if we go on this road of just telling 4 million Kenyans that you must contribute to this healthcare system? So our healthcare system must be funded from taxpayer. So the money must come from the national treasury, not Kenyans paying taxes, then being taxed again.
Isn't it the same thing?
It's not the same thing.
Because if the money comes from the national treasury doesn't have its own
money,
its own taxes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We need a progressive tax system because we can't tax workers. It's about, back to the question of progressive taxes.
It's a chicken and egg analysis.
Yeah, there's no chicken and egg analysis here. It's going to where money is. We're talking about 5%, and we can get more than 40-50 billion Kenya shillings. That's a huge amount of money. Then, of course, moving away from money, because it's not just about money. It's also making sure that our public healthcare system or public education system is also strengthened to make sure that, especially in some of those neglected areas in the informal sector and in the formal areas, some areas as well as in rural areas, because those are the areas that we have some of these big problems, as we have shown in our report, that in some of these poorest areas, there's no, spending is not reaching there as it should be. And then finally, we need to do something about the job market in this country. We have to do something. It's one way of doing that is making sure that we have a way, especially, of absorbing the unemployed youth. There's one easiest way. The government has actually tried to do this. The Kazi Mutani now is it's called like climate work or something of the sort, because this can absorb thousands of Kenyans, but it needs to go to counties as well. We are seeing it at the national levels. Counties should be able to come up with their own Kazi kwa county, so that we can be able to absorb some of these youth. And also our education system, it has to match on what employers what the skills and exactly.
Okay, and the training. All right. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Anthony, it's been quite a rich conversation. I hope to have you, of course, next time also to elaborate further and probably even see some of the interventions that are needed beyond the issues of money. And particularly if there are policies that can be reviewed in the coming year, it would be a very interesting conversation. But thank you very much for your time. Time for us now to switch to sport. We're taking a short breather. We'll be back shortly.